Good evening, dear listener, and welcome to another episode of Mortica Presents Fred Time Stories. I am your host, Dead Fred. Now, without further ado, let's get into tonight's reading. Tonight's reading is a quick one from my friend H.P. Lovecraft. This one is entitled The Book. My memories are very confused. There is even much doubt as to where they begin, for at times I feel appalling vistas of years stretching between me, while at other times it seems as if the very present moment were an isolated point in a gray, formless infinity. I am not even certain how I am communicating this message. While I know I am speaking, I have a vague impression that some strange and perhaps terrible mediation will be needed to bear what I say to the points where I wish to be heard. My identity, too, is bewilderingly cloudy. I seem to have suffered a great shock, perhaps from some truly, utterly monstrous outgrowth of my cycles of unique, incredible experience. These cycles of experience, of course, all stem from that worm-riddled book. I remember when I found it, in a dimly lighted place near the black, oily river where the mists always run. That place was very old, and the ceiling-high shelves full of rotting volumes reached back endlessly through windowless inner rooms and alcoves. There were, besides, great formless heaps of books on the floor and in crude bins. It was one of these heaps that I found the thing. I never learned its title, for the earlier pages were missing, but it fell open towards the end and gave me a glimpse of something which sent my senses reeling. There was a formula, a sort of list of things to do and say, which I recognized as something black and forbidden. Something which I had read of before in a furtive paragraph of mixed abhorrence and fascination, penned by one of those strange ancient delvers into the universe's most guarded secrets, whose decaying text I loved to absorb. It was a key, a guide, to certain gateways and transitions of which mystics have dreamed and whispered since the race was young, and which lead my freedoms and discoveries beyond all three dimensions and realms of life and matter that we all know. Not for centuries had any man recalled its vital substance or known where to find it. But this book was very old indeed. No printing press, but the hand of some half-crazed monk had traced these ominous Latin phrases in uncials of awesome antiquity. I remember how the old man leered and tittered, and made a curious sign with his hand as I bore it away. He had refused to take payment for it, and only long after did I guess why. As I hurried home through the narrow, winding, mist-choked waterfront streets, I had frightful impression of being stealthily followed by softly padded feet. The centuried, tottered houses on both sides seemed alive with a fresh and morbid malignity, as some of its hitherto closed channel of evil understanding had abruptly been opened. I felt that those walls and overhanging gables of mildewed brick and fungus plastered in timber, with fishy, eye-like diamond-plated windows, had leered, could hardly desist from advancing and crushing me. Yet had I only read one least fragment of the blasphemous rune before closing the book and bringing it away. I remember how I read the book at last, white-faced, and locked in the attic room that I had long devoted to strange searchings. The great house was still very still, for I had not gone up till after midnight. I think I had a family then, though the details are very uncertain, and I know there were many servants. Just what the year was, I cannot say, for since then I have known many ages and dimensions, and have had all my notions of time dissolved and refashioned. It was by the light of candles that I read. I recalled the relentless dripping of the wax, and there were chimes that came every now and again from distant belfries. I seemed to keep track of those chimes with a particular intentness, as if I feared to hear some very remote, intruding note among them. Then came the first scratchings and fumbling at the dormer window that looked out high above the other roofs of the city. It came as I droned aloud the 9th verse of that primal lay, and I knew amidst my shudders what it meant. For he passes the gateways, always wins a shadow, and never again will he be alone. I had evoked, and the book was indeed all I had suspected. The night I passed the gateway to a vortex of twisted time and vision, and when morning found me in the attic room, I saw the walls and the shelves and fittings that which I had never seen before. Nor could I have ever seen the world as I have once known it. Mixed with the present scene was also a little of the past, and a little of the future, and every once familiar object loomed alien in this new perspective, brought up to my widened sight. From then on, I walked in a fantastic dream of unknown and half-known shapes, and with each new gateway crossed, the less plainly I could recognize the things of narrow sphere to which I had long been bound. What I saw about me none else saw, and I grew doubtfully silent and aloof, lest I be thought mad. Dogs had a fear of me, for they felt the outside shadow that never left my side. But still I read more, in hidden, forgotten books and scrolls, to which my new vision led me, and pushed me through fresh gateways of space and being and life patterns, toward the core of the unknown cosmos. I remember the night I made 5 concentric circles of fire on the floor, and stood in the innermost one chanting that monstrous litany the messenger from Tartary had brought. The walls melted away, and I was swept back by a black wind through gulfs of fathomless gray, with needle-like pinnacles of unknown mountains miles below me. After a while, there was utter blackness, then the light of myriad stars forming strange, alien constellations. Finally, I saw a little green-litten plain far below me, and discerned on its twisted towers of a city built in no fashion I had ever seen, read, or dreamed of. As I floated closer to that city, I saw a great square building of stone in an open space, and felt a hideous fear clutching me. I screamed and struggled, and after the blankness was again in my attic room, sprawled flat over 5 phosphorescent circles on the floor. In that night's wandering, there was more of the strangest in my many former nights' wanderings, but there was more terror, because I knew I was closer to those outside gulfs and worlds than I'd ever been before. Thereafter, I was more cautious in my incantations, for I had no wish to be cut off from my body and the earth and unknown abysses from which I will never return. I hope you've enjoyed tonight's reading, and hope you will stop by again. My name has been Dead Red. Until next time, dear mortal, stay scared.